Well, hello and welcome to episode number 334 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. And in this week's show, it has been a bad few weeks for Boeing's 767s. Aer Lingus mulls over moving its transatlantic base to the UK, and there's good news as more airlines ditch their charge fees to encourage more people to fly. Woohoo! In the military, a US Navy E2 Hawkeye crashes in Virginia, with the crew safely egressing the aircraft, and two very capable helicopters get some upgrades in Russia and the US. In this week's Plain Truths, we are talking window cracks, and Jan Hubner shares with us the aviation in their life story. So joining me this week, as always, over in the P2UK Master Studios, it is the incredible legend that is Matt Smith.
What do you want? What kind of a thing is that to say? Hello, everyone. Hello, how are we?
Well, I was just thinking, Matt, because it's 9 years, literally 9 years since we got married.
Yes.
And you were the master of ceremonies at our wedding.
I know. That was a very, very cool day, actually. I can't believe it was 9 years. Really?
9 years. I know, it's crazy. It's
How
so
did that
crazy.
happen? How did
I know.
that happen?
So how are things for you, Matt? All good?
Yeah. Good. Not really a lot to sort of. Well, actually, I say not a lot to report. Actually, I've been driving coaches again as of this week, which is weird. In a good way, I mean. It's a very different experience to what I've been used to. I've got to be honest with all the social distancing and stuff in there. I mean, hats off to Lorraine.
Did you come past here today?
Yeah. We all came past here today.
I missed that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different experience, I have to be honest. But say hats off to Lorraine for if. I don't think you can ever make anything 100% safe, but I mean, what they've been doing, obviously, to try and get it as safe as possible. Basically, it's been it's an experience. Let's put it that way. But if I get it, it won't be through want of the measures that my boss has put in place. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm glad you're there doing all the right things in the studio, Matt. It's always good to have you in control, as always.
Thank you. So, I mean, we're a bit stuck at the moment with this social distancing thing, because if I'm not here, we can't even get online at the moment. But I'm working on that. The studio is nearly remotely accessible.
I know, it's scary. Scary. We'll have a drone in there next. So,
what?
Back with us this week.
How many of those beers have you had?
Only one.
Oh,
So back with us this week, and it's good to have him back on the show again this week. He obviously last week I think he was doing some tour of a vineyard here in the UK, but he's back. It's Neville Bounds.
I'd like to call it customer liaison in a restaurant, which I did again last night, actually, over in Stamford, Lincolnshire. But hello, everybody. Yes, great to be back on the show, and it's been a busy couple of weeks for me, I'm pleased to say, on the one hand, because it's been quite hectic. Bit of flying going on as well, and a full A320 last Friday from Edinburgh. I haven't seen that for a while, so that was encouraging. Although, unfortunately, people have forgotten how to get on and off planes. So that was delay and frustration. But we'll get there in the end, don't worry.
So I'm guessing the whole flying for work thing is gradually coming back for you?
Well, we're allowed to fly within the United Kingdom, so we can't fly internationally yet. But it also means that my colleagues in Dublin that I need to see are going to come to Belfast so that I can actually visit them, because that is still technically within the United Kingdom. It's we're getting there slowly, but there's, as we've seen in the news, there's all sorts of weirdness going on with different rules and regulations for different parts of the United Kingdom as well. So it's very fluid, I would say.
Well, thank you, Nev, for joining us this week. It's good to have you back on.
I've missed Nev.
We've missed him. And moving on to someone else, I think everyone has missed as well.
We've got someone new on the show, haven't we?
I know. He's someone who's been off for a few weeks, but we're so glad to have him back because he's a big part of the show. So welcome back, the guy who puts the P in PIC. It's Armando.
Are you? I'm so sorry, Armando.
Well, that reminds me of a physiological response that us old guys have in the air also. you know, putting the P in.
I see.
PIC.
Right.
PIC.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's like a de-icing fluid, right? Yeah.
Hashtag relief tube.
Okay, lovely.
Matt's now busy Googling. What does PIC mean? What does PIC mean?
I don't know. I'm a bit scared to.
Pilot in command.
Oh, I see.
Matt.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Every day is a school day, I think. Yeah.
So how are things with you, Armando? It's good to have you back again with us.
Yeah, as usual, I'm really happy to be back, especially live. You know, I didn't get a chance to send you guys any video segments over the last couple of weeks, but it's actually been over 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks since I've stepped foot in an airplane. I've just been off handling some family stuff, but I go back to work on Sunday, and as glad as I am to be back on the podcast live, I will be just as glad to get back behind the control yoke of an airplane.
Actually, Armando, am I right in thinking it was a certain someone's birthday not very long ago?
Yeah, like yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah. Yesterday was my lovely bride's birthday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we celebrated with shuttling the kid around everywhere. So school, karate, grocery store. You know, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah,
but we did celebrate with
living the dream. Clearly,
living the dream.
And
yeah.
also, to be fair, as I say, because we were having our usual production meeting on a Thursday, Armando very kindly joined us for a little while, and so myself and John sang "Happy Birthday," made Megan's ears bleed ever so slightly. You know,
a delightful rendition, I might add.
You're lovely. You can come again.
So, dare I ask, Armando? Come on, everyone wants to know what birthday gift did Megan get?
Oh,
from
I
you?
don't want to know this because it'll be something really romantic and lovely, and all men everywhere will just literally be like.
How big was the diamond?
Oh,
well, it was 28 inches by 30 inches, but it wasn't a diamond. It was actually a puzzle that you can get online made of a picture collage. She loves puzzles. That's what she does to relax her mind. So it's a pretty large family picture puzzle that's probably going to take her. It would take me months to do. It's probably going to take her about 3 days to do.
Yeah, but she's quite a bit brighter than you, isn't she?
Much. She's so much better than me in so many ways.
Absolutely.
Oh, Matt. Right, let's move on. So we're gonna, before we all get in trouble, we
can't move on. Happy anniversary to you and Jen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Since we're on this romantic streak.
Yes.
I feel sick. Can we move on, please?
I know.
Dear. Armando doing romantic things by getting puzzles and all that kind of thing. Carlos having Never have you done anything nauseating this week?
No, I haven't actually. I'm saving that for next week.
Oh, why? What's next week? Hang on. What's next week?
I can't say. So, but I shall reveal all on next week's show.
Oh, well, there we are.
Well, all right.
Blimey.
Forget anything about aviation. Just tune in next week to see what Nev's going to do.
Find out what that involves that about. Yeah, dearie me. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Carlos, do carry on.
Blimey, it's just so much going on.
I know.
Where was all this in the show notes?
Okay.
Moving.
Sorry, in John's defence, he's not psychic. All right.
I thought he was.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. So we are going to say a big thanks to everyone who's joined us for the live show this evening, and just go through the usual family members and some odds and some extras in the chat room this week. We've got Auntie Liz, Lane Street, Richard Adams. We've got Alex Robinson. Hello to you, Alex. Jenny in Rome. Hello to you, Jenny. Flyer152. Stephen Howland. Neil Landbourne is also in the chat room this week. Hello to you, Masha. Masha's joined us in the chat room this week. Richard Adams. Just want to miss Lane Street. We've got Armando. It's always good to have Armando in the chat room.
I've heard of him.
Hello to Alan Loveday. Hello to you as well, Alan. Good to see you in the chat room. And good to see everyone in the chat room as well this week who's joining us for the show. And don't forget, if you are listening to the show as an audio podcast and want to see what crazy things go on in the world of YouTube when we're doing a live show, just go over to YouTube and search for us, Plain Talking UK. And if you subscribe to us and hit the bell icon, which is right next to that, you'll be notified when Matt hits that stream button and we go live. So you'll be able to join us in the chat room and find out all the craziness that goes on in there each week. But without further ado, it is that time of the month where we have some rather big, humongous thank yous to say to everyone. So Nev, what's going on?
Yes, well, it's the part of the show where we thank all of our listeners that have contributed to it. And this month, we have 2 new contributors. They are from Nick Codling and Warren Dixon. Thank you very much indeed, gents. We really appreciate that. It's on the Patreon. And also there is Luis Cachares, Alan Loveday, Nico Rega, Andrew van der Sarg, Alan White, Stephen Howland, Tanya Wyman, Megan Carrion, Jacob Darlington-Brown, Nicholas Hewitt, Owen Schmizu, Reuben Wells, Graham Haley, Jonathan Warner, Eric Graves, Matt Caton, Masha, Jordan Rose, Andrew Wilson, Evan Chu, Captain Jeff, Adam Spink, Liz Piper, Jeff Ward, Myla, Philip Labe, Stuart Backer, Ray Williams, and Stephanie Plummer. And people that have donated via the regular PayPal system are Richard Adams, Mazuz Karim, and Jennifer Parkinson. Thank you very much to one and all for your fantastic donations. They really help us put the show on the air.
Yes, they do indeed, Nev, and obviously help with all the things that do with the show, as in the libsyn and the website stuff, and all the other bits of sort of tech that we've invested in over the last few months. And I think, Matt, we've got another piece of tech we want to invest in soon for the studio to improve things even more, haven't we?
Yeah, we're after a new server that we're hoping we can use to get a little bit of HD video in from our remote callers, which we're slightly excited about, because we are now, thanks to your amazing support, literally streaming in actual HD as of last week, which is very exciting. Yeah, so we're in actual high definition this week, as we were for last week, because the studio's had a bit of a broadband update. Fibre arrived in Bungie this week, and yeah, we've upgraded up. We were one of the first on the list to get the upgrade, so very excited about that. Good news. It's lovely.
News.
I've got all this bandwidth. I don't know what to do with it, so that's why we want a server now, so that we can do other sort of bits and pieces. We were testing a new HD platform last week, weren't we?
We were,
and it yes, it sort of went kind of well. We're just not quite getting it to do what we want to do, so we've got to go and do a little bit more research. But yes, we're getting there. It's exciting times.
Good time. So, just before we move on to the commercial, just a quick happy birthday wish to Laura, who's celebrating her birthday today. So, happy birthday to you, Laura. I know Will is looking after you, and I did help myself to some barbecue food earlier, which was awesome. So, thanks for that, and have a great day, Laura.
Honestly, somebody's gate crashes somebody's birthday.
I know, I'm terrible, aren't I?
Anyway, come on, before we start getting told off by John.
We are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if all the team is ready.
Yes, we are.
Let's go.
Ready to go.
So, kicking off this week's first news story, and it's been a busy week last few weeks for 767s actually, because they've been having some issues. So this one is on the Aviation Herald website, Simon's awesome site, and the accident. This is an Omni Boeing 767-300, and this was at Bucharest on August the 28th. And they had a left main gear collapse on landing. So the Omni Air Boeing 767-300, registration November 423 Alpha X-ray, performing flight Oscar Yankee 703 from Kabul, Afghanistan to Bucharest, with 49 passengers and 15 crew, landed on Benezia's airport runway 07 with all gear struts down at 14:53 local time and locked, but at 2 seconds after the smooth touchdown, suffered the collapse of the left main gear. The aircraft skidded along the runway on its right main gear, aft belly and left engine cowl and nose gear lifted off the ground again, and it then came to stop on the centre line of the runway. The aircraft was evacuated via slides. No injuries were reported, and the aircraft was supposed to continue on to the USA following the stop in Bucharest to refuel. So Romania's AIAS, Civil Aviation Safety Investigation and Analysis Authority, reported the left gear failed during rollout And they also have appointed an investigation team to commission and then a preliminary report that can be expected in around about 30 days. Now, there were some pictures on the site. If you take yourselves over to the Aviation Herald website, there's some pictures of the landing gear strut, which it's definitely had an issue there, that's for sure. But there's also a few other ones on with the 767-300. Another one was in LA, in Los Angeles. This one again, a Boeing 767-300 again. Left main gear didn't extend. This one was a FedEx one, a freighter version of the aircraft on the 19th of August, which had the issue with a gear. And there was also a Kalitta 767-300 and Vancouver on August the 17th, which had flaps problems on approach, and they had some various warnings. They also had an issue with the right-hand wheel well flap drive unit on that one. But it's safe to say, I mean, all guys, I mean, the 767 is an amazing aircraft, one of the sort of biggest selling, I think, Boeing aircraft, wide-bodied aircraft of its time. But it's had a few issues. But I will say, I think I looked at one of these aircraft. I think it was the Omni Air one. I think that was over 24, 25 years old, that aircraft. But what do you think, Armando?
Yeah, the Omni Air is one of those operators that does a lot of U.S. military and U.S. government contracts. So it's highly likely that the 49 passengers on board going from Afghanistan back to the U.S. via Bucharest were all military folks redeploying from the combat zone. There was a similar incident. Delta had one on a 767 that had a trunnion failure, I think back in 1995, something like that. It's like everything else. This just happens to be the trifecta with the 76s this week. But, these airplanes go through quite a bit of, cycles. And now that being said, the maintenance has very strict inspection procedures and everything. But like everything else, it's a mechanical thing. This, from the pictures, it looked like it just snapped, clear in half. And the video, which it's, nowadays it's great that we have video that surfaces just an hour after an incident happens. But the video doesn't look like it was any kind of extreme weather or crosswinds or anything like that. But you got to admit, looking from the pictures, that's probably one of those things that's unexpected, and the crew managed to keep it right on the center line and bring it to a stop.
So just as I say, it's the naive person in me here, Armando. Obviously, because it's like I suppose in this scenario, obviously, obviously in the cockpit, you're very aware of the fact that something has failed, aren't you? I mean, that the very fact that it's leaning to one side or whatever, when you I don't suppose you'll be able to see the sparks and that, but you'll know that there's something going on. I mean, presumably in that scenario where normally you'd be doing things like reverse thrust and all that kind of thing, the first thing you're doing in the cockpit there is killing power to the engine, the side that's dropped and things like that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's funny because very few things are critical. Like you don't have to just bring it all to a stop. The engine's going to come to a stop if you don't see sparks back there and you have 15 crew on board. If the airplane's still centerline, it's still controllable, they're probably going to take their time to assess what's going on. Initially, I'm completely speculating here, but they're going to feel something odd. The plane's going to try to yaw to the left side of the runway. They're going to be doing some kind of control input to keep it on centerline. Yeah, and very quickly they're going to realize that something's wrong. There's, it's interesting because there's probably not a lot of indicators, warnings and indicators to indicate that your strut has broken in half. So you're going to get indications from something else, which might lead you astray in your emergency procedures. So judging by the engine, sitting on the ground, it might have broken a lot of the blades, it damaged the engine. So you're going to get some engine indications, something abnormal there before you ever realize that, oh man, my gear has collapsed. But they would immediately, they're on the ground, they're on the center line. They probably did start shutting things down pretty quick. And as long as there's no fire, visible fire, then they can take their time.
This is the thing, isn't it? That's.
I never like to disagree with Armando because he is obviously the resident expert. But when the landing gear collapsed, I don't think the pilot in command or the first officer would have said, "Oh my, my gear has collapsed.
Yeah. I agree with that. That's not the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh dear. I mean, I mean, yeah, it's just, I suppose there's, I guess it's
so rare. I mean, that, to have a gear collapse on a 767, it would just be incredibly rare. It's probably not the first thing they thought of.
I mean, do you think there's a chance that there are some, is it perhaps some aircraft age a possible issue in the fact that
1995, Matt?
I mean, there's been three basically in the space of 2 weeks, two of which were gear collapses. I mean, is it just a massive coincidence?
It's so hard to know. At this point, we can only say coincidence because we don't know that this gear trunnion is the one that came with this airplane. So it might have been replaced at some point. It might have been, it might have come from another airplane at one of the inspections. Especially at that age, it might be new, and we don't know. So until they complete the investigation and you start getting some of these, they'll start digging into the actual part numbers and where they came from and their lineage and who installed it. It's
25 years old. Omni Air one that was the first story.
Yeah, but that's one of the things. I think one of the BA documentaries that we talked about a couple months ago talked about, well, the airframe is 25 years old, but there are life limited parts that get replaced at its, throughout its life. So we don't know. Stephen S. in the chat room saying that the gear assembly is normally overhauled every 10 to 12 years. So, and even in an overhaul, you may discover something that says, well, instead of overhauling, we're just going to replace it. So hard to know until the investigation comes out.
Yeah, agreed.
So Matt, moving on to the next story, and this one is the Royal Air Force working closely with Ryanair.
Okay. That's one take on it, certainly. Okay. It's sorry, I was in the wrong place there, Carlos. You caught me a little bit unawares, I'll be honest. Anyway, the BBC is the website, and the headline is Stansted Airport, 2 held over suspicious device on plane released. 2 men arrested after reports of a suspicious device in a passenger plane's toilet had been released without charge. RAF jets were scrambled to intercept the Lauda Motion plane and escorted it to Stansted at around about 1900 BST on Sunday. Counter-terror officers detained 2 men, but after investigating, they discovered the object in the toilet was a mobile phone, although many questions there. We'll perhaps come back to that. The men are not considered to have committed any offences, the police said. A Ryanair spokesman said that the crew of the flight from Vienna to Stansted had been alerted to a potential security threat on board. Typhoon jets from RAF Coningsby intercepted the plane and escorted it to the Essex airport. The Eastern Region Special Operations Unit said that the men were detained under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act, but in a new statement on Monday, the unit said after examination by specialist investigators, the object was found not to be of concern. Officers spoke with the 2 men, and neither were considered to have committed any offences. The detective superintendent Andy Waldy said that we understandably take any reports of suspicious objects or behaviour on flights very seriously, and thankfully on this occasion there was no cause for concern. I'd like to thank those on the flight for their cooperation and understanding while officers conducted their inquiries. So, I mean, I guess after all this, it's just a scenario where somebody dropped their mobile phone in the toilet bin, but you'd have thought that A, they'd have known about it, and B, that they would have reported that they'd lost their phone in the toilet bin, like to one of the cabin crew to retrieve it, surely. I mean, so it's a very odd thing to just drop a mobile phone into a bin, but there we go. That story, by the way, was sent to us by James Watson. And if you would like to send us a story for us to read out on the show, if you stumble across any aviation-related news at all, please do make sure that you send it to us. podcast@planetalkinguk.com is the email address, or if you want to send it to us by WhatsApp, it's +44 757 22 491 66.
I'll tell you what, we've had a few instances lately, haven't we, with these sorts of things happening, and it's safe to say that the Royal Air Force are definitely having some good training missions.
Practice, I think, is the word
Practices.
we're looking for. Yeah, absolutely. And also, Nev, there's one here for you, actually, because it was actually a Lauda Motion aircraft that was involved, but the BBC just said Ryanair all the way through.
Oh,
I know, absolutely. The Independent also, which is what I've tried to get a picture. I can't get the picture to come up for some reason, which is slightly annoying. But there was a when they covered it, actually put up a picture of the correct aircraft and everything. Like, it was even an A320. Everything was correct. I mean, you'd have been very proud of the Independent, Nev.
Yes. Well, it's about time we had some proper reporting, isn't it?
Indeed, absolutely.
So, Nev, moving on to the next story, and a lucky green airline.
Yes, it's on simpleflying.com, and it says that Aer Lingus is considering moving transatlantic services to the UK. And so the airline is currently, thinking about moving its transatlantic flights from Shannon to the UK as it continues to grapple with the Irish government's COVID-19 restrictions. The IAG-owned airline has 2 new Airbus A321neo aircraft based at Shannon Airport in County Clare that would like to move to the UK. But before the coronavirus grounded the planes in March, they used to fly between Ireland, Heathrow and the US. According to a report in the Irish Times, the airline is considering moving the planes to one of 6 regional airports in the UK. Manchester in the north of England and Edinburgh in Scotland both want Aer Lingus to operate its Boston and New York flights from their airports. The other 4 airports in contention have not been named, but it is believed that they are all regional gateways. The Irish Times reports that Aer Lingus contacted the airports that it was planning to submit tenders 3 weeks ago, and the airports replied with offers. It's now up to Aer Lingus to decide who to select. The Aer Lingus flight between the UK and the US are not likely to start until 2021 and will have the initial contract period of 3 years. Aer Lingus pilots and crew will operate the flights and be based in the UK. Losing the Aer Lingus flights to a UK airport would be a massive loss for Shannon and to the west of Ireland, who rely heavily on tourism from the US. United Airlines and Delta have already said that they will not be flying to Shannon next year. With the loss of Aer Lingus, it would leave American Airlines as the only transatlantic service operating out of Shannon. A spokesman for the airport operator, the Shannon Group, said that they were in talks with Aer Lingus about resuming flights to America and Heathrow. He also pointed out that the flights were critical to business and tourism in the west and the south of Ireland. These and other services have been suspended due to advice against non-essential travel, and their resumption is among key recommendations of the Task Force for Aviation Recovery, which included a call for a stimulus package for airports in the region to encourage the rebuilding of traffic, the spokesman said. Ireland has some of the strictest COVID-19 rules on people entering the country, with only some European nations exempt from a 14-day quarantine. The country's largest airline, Ryanair, has repeatedly called on the Irish government to relax the quarantine restriction. They said that many countries on the quarantine list have a lower infection rate than the Republic. Losing the Aer Lingus flights to America and London from Shannon will be a big blow and is another repercussion brought on by the coronavirus. Assuming that the winning airport is Manchester, the move might prove profitable as Manchester Airport has a much larger catchment area. Last year, Manchester Airport handled more than 27 million passengers compared to Shannon's 1.7 million, a decline of 8% compared to 2018. That's going to be quite interesting to see if they're going to go ahead with that. I have to say, I'm still interested to see what it would be like to fly transatlantic on an A321. They do it already. A couple of other airlines already do that. But yes, I'd like twin aisles. But it's interesting that it's also worth mentioning that Ryanair has warned that it will look to leave Ireland if COVID-19 travel restrictions remain in place. The budget airline says it will move capacity out of Ireland during the winter season unless the government's green list of countries deemed safe for travel is removed. The CEO of Ryanair, Eddie Wilson, says you can't do business with a 14-day quarantine. Ryanair have insisted that they want the likes of the UK, the US and Germany added to the green list at the very least if they're to keep their fleet in Ireland. So currently, anyone travelling into Ireland from any country not on the green list must quarantine themselves for a 2-week period. This, Ryanair claims, is vastly discouraging travel and damaging business and tourism in Ireland. And I have to say, I agree with that, because the way things have been going in the last couple of months, it's been pretty horrific for that industry.
I mean, I don't know what's the answer here. I mean, part of me understands exactly where everybody's coming from on this one. I mean, I don't know. I guess the government are sort of damned if they do and damned if they don't in this scenario, aren't they? I mean, it's...
yes, but having said that...
there's a lot of inconsistency, which I think
there's a lot of that,
adds a lot of weight to their argument, doesn't it?
And also, I don't think that they should have... although there is devolved, government in the United Kingdom, I think that it would have been better to have had a single strategy for the whole of the United Kingdom, rather than having different rules for Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England. And
of course, I mean that's obviously something that here in the UK we're grappling with at the moment, isn't it? Because there is a little bit of disjointedness in the fact that I think Portugal is one of the countries, isn't it, where they're not on the Portugal's not on the UK as in like England no-fly list, but I think it is now for Wales and Scotland, isn't it, as an example? But England and Northern Ireland haven't implied any restrictions. I don't know. I suppose it would be a lot easier for everybody to deal with /swallow if everybody was all singing from the same song sheet. But
it would be more helpful. But we're not in that world, unfortunately. So
no, thank goodness.
They go along.
Yeah, absolutely, very much so.
Next story is Armando's, and I think, Matt, if you were going to travel across the US, you'd want to do it on this
would
aircraft.
I? Oh, okay, all right then. Loading the picture now.
Not just a US. Matt, if the 757 tried to kill you, this is the way to travel.
Oh, quite.
AIN Online, the company Gulfstream is reporting progress in the testing program for its new flagship G700, completing more than 100 flights to date. The Savannah, Georgia-based aircraft manufacturer also conducted flutter testing and expanded the flight envelope at both low and high speeds. In early May, the company announced that a third airframe had joined the flight test program. So get this, it is powered by a pair of Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 engines. The G700 has an intended maximum operating speed of Mach 0.925 and a maximum cruising altitude of 51,000 feet. But as part of the test regime, the aircraft exceeded both, reaching Mach 0.99.
Oh, that's very close.
At 54,000 feet. So the G700 will be able to fly at least 7,500 miles at long-range cruise of Mach 0.85, according to Gulfstream. Get this is the opposite of a 757 or the single-aisle A321. The large cabin jet offers up to 5 living areas. The largest galley in the industry, a 100% fresh air cabin system, and an option for a master suite with a shower. So go over to Gulfstream, check out their very nice website on this aircraft, and there's a little tool that you can play around with. If I flew it from my home airport, Bungie or something like that.
Right.
Flying a G700 from Bungie, you can almost reach Sydney. You can get to all of the U.S., most of Africa, all of Europe in some serious style. And Mach 0.99 for a business jet, that's amazing.
That's
well done
sounds
to these
very
guys.
fast. I presume that would need to stop if it was going over to Australia or whatever. It would need to stop and refuel at some point.
I think just barely. You know what? While we're talking about the next story, I will play with the tool and
you will go and investigate.
See if we can get to Australia.
I'll tell you what.
I mean, it's a lovely looking aircraft. Look, the only thing that worries me is it looks like it's actually going a bit all medieval there with its jousting stick sticking out the front there. I'm not quite sure what that's all about.
That's the bird catcher.
Right. Okay.
And at Mach 0.99, it would get so hot that you basically just get rotisserie chicken on the windshield.
Nice. So you can eat when you land as well, which is a bonus. Yeah.
Actually, it's worth noting, if you get a chance, go over to YouTube and just check out the G700 on there. There's some really good videos of the interior. Honestly, Matt, you've got to see the interior on this aircraft. It is phenomenal.
Is it?
It is really, really nice.
Okay. All right. When are we going?
Well, I'll email Gulfstream.
All right. Okay. Lovely.
I'll see what I can
do. You're reading the next story, but how about you do it while I'm reading the next one? There you go. I look forward to a full report.
So moving on.
Yeah.
Moving
indeed.
on to the next story, and this one is on the global news.
Yeah, we're actually we've got a little bit of audio that we're gonna play you first of all, basically the story.
Yes.
So let's introduce this story with some live ATC audio.
Right side. Off the left side of Tower, American 1997. We just passed a guy in a jetpack.
American 1997, okay, thank you. Were they up to your left side or right side?
Off the left side of maybe 300 yards or so, about our altitude.
Okay, American 1997, contact Tower 120.905. Thanks today.
120.905, we'll see you, American 1997.
Southwest 6046, contact Tower 133.9er.
And Skywest 3962, and we just saw the guy pass by us jetpack.
JetBlue 23, use caution. Person in a jetpack reported 300 yards south of the LA final at about 3,000 feet, 10-mile final.
JetBlue 23, we're heard, and we are definitely looking.
Only in LA.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Only in LA.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
so anyway, you've got the details, Carlos. So let's.
When I saw this story this week, I had to put it in the
it was
show
also
notes.
sent to us by Richard Adams, I should stress as well. He sent us the story as well. But yes, give us some details on it, Carlos, if you will.
The story on the globalnews.ca website. Have you seen Iron Man or the Rocketeer cruising around LAX lately? If so, the Los Angeles Police Department and the Federal Aviation Administration would probably like to speak with you regarding their case of a mysterious man in a jetpack. Police, FAA officials and airport staff are still scratching their heads after 2 flight crews reported seeing a person in a jetpack near the LA International Airport on Sunday when he was allegedly cruising past aircraft at an altitude of 3,000 feet. 2 pilots working for separate airlines reported seeing the jetpack-wearing man at 6:35 p.m. on Sunday, according to ATC Control, streamed on the website liveatc.net. The FAA confirmed the 2 reports to Fox 11 in Los Angeles on Monday. The first report came from a pilot on an American Airlines flight 1997, which was approaching the airport on Sunday evening. And obviously you heard the ATC conflab there, but the air traffic controller can then be heard warning a JetBlue flight about the unexpected aerial visitor. And it might sound implausible, but some jetpacks have been known to reach such heights. The Martin jetpack, for example, can allegedly reach heights of up to 5,000 feet. The Martin jetpack, for example, is, well, you could probably go and buy one of these on eBay, I'd imagine. But a New Zealand-based company designed and tested the fan-powered jetpack in 2011, but their plan to sell the devices for more than $100,000 US never quite got off the ground. Most jetpack designs are safest to use over water, and some actually incorporate jets of water, while others use fans or jet boards to lift the pilot off the ground. Aviation expert Steve Cowell told Fox 11 that such a flight is possible, though not for long periods of time. He said that even the most technologically advanced jetpacks can only fly very briefly, he told the station, and this person may have gone up and then come down and then driven away. Former pilot Ross Almer told Fox that if the reports are true, everyone involved is lucky that the individual didn't get sucked into a jet engine. Mind, that would have been rather messy. No suspects have been identified and no one has come forward to claim responsibility for the stunt as of Tuesday this week. However, people were quick to recommend fictional suspects on social media. Yeah. I must admit, when you listen to that live ATC transmission, it just tickles me when you hear the ATC controller kind of having a very quick giggle when that was reported. It just really amused me.
And as Armando quite rightly said, only in LA would something like that happen. I think worth saying, because to be fair, I think APG covered this, and I think they were speculating that it was possibly a kite. That was spotted, I think, and Neil Lamborn has mentioned that in the chat room as well. It's I don't know. I mean, do we think it's a guy with a jetpack? I mean, seriously.
I mean, if 2 pilots have said it's going to be, I mean, pilots are normally fairly clued up.
You'd like to think they'd know the difference between a kite and a person with a jetpack. So.
Armando, you're our resident pilot here. I mean, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to spot the difference between a kite or a jetpack.
Yeah, I would think so too. I remember flying north of RAF Mildenhall at about 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet, and seeing a glider, because there's a gliding club between RAF Marham and RAF Mildenhall. And that was a pretty shocking moment. And that's something that you expect to see in the air. And then I have seen a drone coming into Baltimore. A drone is hard to see, but once you see it, you sort of know what it is. So yeah, I think that you would be able to identify it as a guy in a jetpack, but then the flip side of it is you would think that anybody that's testing one of these things or developing one of these things would know that where and where not to fly it. I love that in the article they found the one picture of a man in a jetpack flying in front of an airliner.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't do it again if you tried. I think it's worth mentioning also Neil Landwarn is sort of landing you all in it here. He said, do we trust pilots to give us reliable information, especially given all the ones that we know?
Oh, 51%. We only have to tell you from the front of the airplane. We only have to tell you in the back of the airplane what we think is
right
is appropriate.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, that's made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Thank you, Armando. I feel greatly reassured by.
No, go out and listen to APG. They were talking about what are the most embarrassing PA announcements that you've had to make.
Oh, really?
It's pretty funny. Yeah. Captain Nix is obviously great.
That doesn't surprise me.
He's had a terrible day that he had to explain to all his passengers through the course of like 9 hours or something like that, and then he had to ditch him. Okay, we're going to a hotel. You guys, good luck on your own. They rode a bus to Newark or LaGuardia or something. I don't remember.
Nice.
Nev, is a jet? I was going to say, Nev, is a jetpack something you'd like to have a?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, as long as it was a yellow one.
Banana coloured, of course.
And also for visibility reasons too.
We would need quite the muff for you to record audio, right?
Good point.
Right,
it's going pretty fast.
Yeah,
that's what she said. Sorry. Anyway,
stuff whizzing past you at 0.8 Mach. I want to be as visible as possible.
Good point. Yes, I think high vis is the answer.
Yeah, just an orange helmet.
Yeah. Orange helmet and a big fluorescent jacket. What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, we're going to move on before somebody sues us.
Actually, this next story is great. Obviously, you heard last week on the show that Duxford have lost the Flying Legends display,
yes,
but
absolutely.
Matt, Duxford have got an awesome aircraft now coming.
Yeah, indeed. So it's I want to say Faraday. Does that sound about right? Faraday, the UK company developing a hybrid electric short takeoff and landing aircraft for a variety of applications, including regional airline service, on Tuesday began operations at its new headquarters at Duxford Airfield. The move gives the startup the stability it says it needs to advance plans to achieve a first flight with the planned bioelectric hybrid aircraft, that's the BEHA, in early 2024. The company is the anchor tenant in Duxford's new Avtech facility, established as a research and development hub for general aviation ventures by Cambridge University's Gonville and I want to say Caius College, on land that it owns adjoining the Imperial War Museum site. The new facility is expected to be ready in 18 to 24 months, and Faraday will use it to build the new aircraft, in the process giving museum visitors a glimpse of how the 21st century aerospace industry works. For the time being, the company is occupying temporary space in the museum's Battle of Britain hangar. The design definition work, which has been underway with a team at Swansea University in Wales for several years, is at an advanced stage. The plan calls for the turboprop to run on biofuels and for hybrid versions of the aircraft to be converted to all-electric propulsion when this technology is finalised. The company company aims to have the first version of the aircraft ready to enter service as early as 2026. Faraday anticipates the building 3 variants of the BEHA, the initial hybrid electric M1H, a pilotless M1AT model to be operated autonomously for military roles, and an all-electric E1 expected to be available by 2030. The aircraft is similar in size to the former British Aerospace Jetstream 31 twin turboprop regional airliner with a wingspan of 55 feet. The aircraft is expected to be able to carry 18 passengers or 5 tons of freight on flights of up to around 1,150 miles. It is expected to have a service ceiling of around about 14,000 feet and operate at speeds of up to 230 miles an hour. Now, this is a very, very exciting project, isn't it? And as you say, it's been a slightly not the, I suppose, mixed news coming out of Duxford, shall we say? Although I think they reopen this weekend, I think, don't they? Since lockdown started, which is kind of exciting. But there's some great pictures here. I'm just going to see if I can pop up a picture of the the suggested prototype. But I mean, Armando, how do you feel about this particular aircraft?
Well, this is the way of the future, isn't it? We every time we talk about a hybrid or an electric aircraft, we see just more and more increasingly interesting designs. I think it's a beautiful airplane. And, especially in the UK, if that's where it's going to start its life, what a great, what a great market for short haul flights with just incredibly efficient aircraft. And I continue to reach out to these companies to have them. I'd love to have one of them on the podcast and talk about their developments. And, I was just looking at Faraday and, probably going to reach out to them and say, hey, do you guys want to come on the show and talk to us and talk to our audience about your developments? I think that'd be great.
Indeed, I think it's a great idea. Presumably, a lot of the domestic flying that you do, Nev, the range would meet most, what is it, like Newcastle and Scotland? There's enough range there, really. Especially if it was sort of based out of, I could see one of these very easily flying into and out of City Airport, for example.
Yeah, and also, the possibility of regional airports, of course, is great for this kind of thing, as you say, with the kind of range they're talking about as well. So I think that's the thing, that trying to replace expensive trains, because some of them can be, especially if you haven't booked it in advance, for example, with something which is a bit more sensible. Now, obviously, trains work pretty well on some of those sectors, but not in all cases. But yeah, I think this is definitely got some legs, as they say, or wings in this case. Interesting, very interesting.
Well, it certainly addresses everything, right? Your carbon emissions, your noise complaints, because it doesn't make any noise. It's fairly silent. So, and it's a comfortable ride. Kind
of fits in with the Duxford whole scene, I think.
I quite like the old versus the new idea as well. I think that's a nice sort of touch, isn't it? To sort of go, literally like when flight first began to right up to the present day. I can't wait to go and have a look, actually.
Yeah, we need to go back to Duxford again.
Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah. So next story for you, Nev, and it's all about those fees.
It is, yes, and there's plenty of them. And this is some of the problems we have at the moment. And this is from TheVerge.com. And it says that American Airlines and Delta Airlines both said they will permanently eliminate fees associated with changing or cancelling a flight. The news comes less than a day after United Airlines first announced a permanent end to its change fee policy. All 3 carriers have been waiving change fees since March 2020. With demand dried up, the airlines are seeking to make flying look safe, stress-free, and most of all, cheap. I think we're ticking many of those boxes at the moment. But we've said before that we need to approach flexibility differently than the industry has in the past. And today's announcement builds on that promise to ensure we're offering industry-leading flexibility, space, and care to our customers, said Delta CEO Ed Bastian in a statement. By eliminating change fees, giving our customers an opportunity to get where they want to go faster with free same-day standby on earlier flights and providing access to upgrades and seats for all fare types, American Airlines Chief Revenue Officer Vasu Raja said. Well, the new policy only applies to travel within the US, however, and airlines have traditionally relied on change fees, which can be as high as $200 a person, to rake in billions of dollars every year. United took in $625 million in change fees in 2019, whilst Delta earned $615 million. Industry-wide, the change fees brought in $2.8 billion in 2019. The pressure is now on the smaller and mid-tier carriers to make a similar move. A spokesperson for Southwest noted that the airline had never charged an extra fee for travel changes, while spokespersons for Spirit, JetBlue and Alaska Airlines did not immediately respond to a request for comment. But yes, changing your flight, there's always a reason for the airline to see if they can get a few extra dollars out of you.
I mean, I suppose in these times, though, I mean, it's just like, it's literally trying to retain the business as much, for as much as you can, isn't it? You need people to sort of rebook in these times when people are so unsure about flying.
So there's hope.
They've got to do something, haven't they? Yeah. Will they bring them back, though, I guess, if we ever return to, post-COVID?
I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. So instead of that, maybe they will get rid of seat choosing fees. Maybe they'll get rid of baggage fees. Maybe they'll get rid of all the other fees.
You've essentially, Armando, what you've done is you've killed off Ryanair's model completely.
I'm thinking of charging EasyJet a fee myself.
Right. Okay.
A fee for non-payment of my refund for my flight.
Oh, haven't you got it back yet?
Yeah.
Public grievance.
Still not in my bank yet. Oh well.
Right. I mean, it's this is
just putting it out there. I'm just saying.
Okay. What was it? Business class ticket, was it, Carlos? I mean,
no, not at all, not at all. It did say when I put the refund thing through, the ticket online on the EasyJet website, it said it may take up to 28 days for the 200 quid that they owe me, because that's all it is. It's all the flights were to Malta and back into the account. But I would imagine that it's probably going to be 29 days before I see anything.
In their defence, is it possible that it's because they just have such a volume of refunds to do at the moment? I mean, is it possible that it could genuinely take 28 days to get round to you? Because refunds of this nature cannot be automated. I mean, somebody has got to sit down and physically refund you the money.
Yeah, well, it will come when it comes.
I'm doing an Armando. I'm trying to be glass half full.
I will just say, actually, in Nev's kind of defence as such, BA were incredible.
Right,
at their
fair point.
refund.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Just saying, Nev.
Yes, well, they've been very good. Although they did try to when they cancelled our flight to. Oh, it was the Malta one, yeah. I said, "Do you fancy going to Gibraltar for a couple of days instead?" And we did consider that, but they weren't able to switch the flights, and there was a £550 change fee.
What?
Even though they've cancelled the flight.
Right, and I mean, obviously, you did that, right? I mean, I mean, goodness. Actually, Carlos, all jokes aside, Jan Hubner in the chat room here has said something very, very true here. The credit card chargeback.
Is any one problem with that?
Right, you did it on a Visa card, didn't you?
Correct, Armando.
Now, look here, Carlos. You, of all people, should know that whenever you're booking any kind of Carlos, I'm genuinely shocked that you used a debit card and not.
It was a debit. I was a debit card, yeah, but I have got.
Right. Okay, so a public service announcement, please, ladies and gentlemen. Unless you want to look like a chump like Carlos, whenever you're booking your flights or whenever you're booking a holiday, and I'm going to look right into the camera here. Sorry if this is the audio version. This won't work. Make sure that you book on a credit card and don't end up like a chump like Uncle Carlos. Honestly, of all people.
To be fair, I booked the BA flights on the credit card because they were £1,000, but with the EasyJet ones being at just 200 quid, you know, that was a case of, the money's there, I'll just book the flights now and use my Visa debit card. But I'll get the money back. It'll just take a little while.
Okay, all right then. And when we're still talking about this in a year's time because you haven't had your money back,
I'll be charged interest.
Anyway, we should probably move on before John gets really waspy.
Moving on to the next story, Armando, and it's all about go.
Yeah. Speaking of in-flight amenities and things like that, anybody who's flown any airline in the world has probably tried to use in-flight internet and seen the GoGo logo. So, from the Chicago Tribune, in-flight internet company GoGo is selling its commercial aviation business for $400 million, which you think it would actually be more than that. So following a series of efforts that the company has made to cut costs during the coronavirus pandemic. Global satellite operator Intelsat is the buyer, GoGo said in a news release this last Monday. Their president and CEO, Oakley Thorne, said, "I've been preaching publicly for a long time that service providers like GoGo really need to be vertically integrated with satellite providers that they can buy capacity from. And that's what this deal does." He said that the talks began before the pandemic, and he was pleased to be able to get it done despite COVID. So this deal will leave GoGo with its business aviation unit, which serves corporate flights, probably that Gulfstream G700 we just talked about. Most of the employees are based in Broomfield, Colorado, and that's where GoGo will move its headquarters to. Employees in GoGo's commercial airline business will become employees of Intelsat, and Intelsat does plan to keep the commercial airline business in Chicago and operate it as an independent business unit, and there are no job cuts planned. And that's they employ about just under 1,000 people, about 500 of which are in the Chicago area. So let's see if this improves the service from GoGo, because I know that's one of my constant frustrations as soon as I board half these airliners.
Yeah.
If you got a GoGo. You got to go.
Okay, careful with the puns here. Actually, what you were mentioning jobs there, of course, let's not forget that I think it was today it was announced that there was over 1,000 jobs going at Virgin today. I think all of a sudden it's an interesting sort of scenario there. I just I get more to come out of that, I think, isn't there, Carlos? I'm not really sure.
Well, they should just employ you and Nev, I think, to do all their broadband needs on aircraft.
No, I was that too. No, I was talking about the Virgin Atlantic story that hit sort of earlier this afternoon.
Yes,
I think, wasn't it?
Yes, about the job losses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This the last story actually on the commercial news this week is about it's about Virgin Atlantic. And it's on Flight Global. So UK carrier Virgin Atlantic is restoring flights to Atlanta, Lagos, Tel Aviv, and the Indian cities of Delhi and Mumbai this month as the restructuring airline rebuilds its network amid coronavirus. The services add to its existing network of US destinations of New York, JFK, Los Angeles, and Miami, as well as Barbados, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. The carrier resumed passenger services on the 20th of July following the coronavirus grounding. Virgin Atlantic Chief Commercial Officer, Joa Javinen, says we are continually reviewing our network as countries begin to open up their borders, and we're introducing more and more flying. He says that we are incredibly excited to resume services to Delhi, Tel Aviv, Atlanta, Mumbai, and Lagos this September, as well as increasing the frequency to other destinations. He says that we're now offering daily flights to New York, JFK, and LA, twice weekly flights to Shanghai as well. And notice as well on here, Wizz Air have announced 6 new destinations as well from Doncaster Sheffield Airport. So Wizz Air have announced its expansion at the airport with the addition of a second Airbus A320 aircraft and 6 new routes to Fuerteventura, Gran Canaria, Lanzarote, Tenerife, Lisbon, and Eindhoven, starting operations on October the 22nd. Tickets to the new destinations can already be booked on wizzair.com's website and the airline's mobile app from as low as £17.99. Ooh. So it's coming less than 3 weeks after the announcement of Wizz Air UK's based operations at Doncaster, Sheffield. So actually, yeah, on that story about Virgin, Nev, was it, how many jobs was it Virgin were?
Oh, today, 1,150, I think. So those are additional job losses in addition to the ones that were announced.
I think Sky News said that Virgin have nearly, with that cut, of nearly half their workforce, I think they said.
It's extraordinary. Yeah. And I think the problem is that the recovery from all of this is going to take a very long time indeed. Now we've seen the extent of some of the cuts and from BA last week as well. So, yeah, it's pretty horrible, this, and there's no quick fix to it, unfortunately.
It'll be interesting to see when all this does finally things start to get back to normal, how many people who have lost their jobs within the aviation industry will go back to, if they're offered a job back within the aviation industry, I was thinking that the other day, actually, and I wondered whether we're actually losing people out of the industry for good. And of course, when that happens, there's a whole load of new recruitment that's got to go on, expensive recruitment, and then training people from scratch in some cases as well. So it's a false economy on the one hand, but on the other hand, if they don't have the cash to keep the whole operation afloat, then they've got to do something on the overheads, haven't they? So,
and that's the issue, isn't it? At the end of the day, I suppose you could keep all the staff on and then go under an awful lot faster. I guess the aviation industry is on its knees. There's no two ways about it, is it? I mean, it's horrendous. Bearing in mind this is an industry that we all love, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Yeah. It's there is a bit of positive news, obviously, which Carlos, I think, is about to share with us.
Yeah, I did. I mentioned that. Yeah, the Wizz Air one with the new destinations. But actually, there was a few airlines. I think there was some airlines I read on. It might have been Simple Flying. I think I saw the story on. I think Armando might know better than me. I think there was some US airlines that had kind of brought on a few more destinations. I think it was one of the regional airlines that had opened up a few more routes within the US.
Yeah, there's just so much change going on right now. American and Delta both announced that they were going to cut services to, I think, 11 cities. Obviously, those are based on passenger loads, but somebody will pick them up. So then you have, the regionals or a smaller essential air service carrier that can come in and pick up that service. I know my particular company, we are in competition with SkyWest in many of our markets. As we evaluate our passenger loads and say, geez, maybe this isn't worth it. We're way smaller than SkyWest, and they're coming into, to basically try to provide service to that destination. And the service will always be there. And without, there's getting political, and then there's getting aviation political, which is 6 months or 8 months ago, it was a buyer's market, right? You had all these pilots, everybody was looking for pilots, and we had management on their knees, so to speak.
And there was pilot shortages as well, wasn't there?
There was pilot shortage, everything. There weren't going to be enough. This has leveled, if not changed, the playing field, where now the people behind the desks, the bean counters and those that are doing money calculations are saying, wait a minute. So all these pilots that are going to go off, either early retire, take our severance packages, furlough packages, we're looking at 5 to 7 year callbacks before you go back to work, which, as Nev was talking about, people aren't going to wait 5 years. They're going to go off and do something else.
Well, because they can't afford not to.
Right. But then that means that the thousands and thousands of people that had begun training because of this pilot shortage that we were advertising, now you can pay them a quarter of what you were paying the guys that are saying, wait a minute, you know, I'm going to go do something else. I've had enough furloughs in my life. So it's just this constant battle. And it just happens every few years. So just how quickly things change, huh?
And the amount of pilots who are now grocery delivery drivers, that ratio is quite high from what I understand. I know of at least 2 people who are no longer airline pilots because of obviously what's going on here, both of whom are currently working for a grocery delivery firm, essentially, for one of the major
it's a
supermarkets.
high quality grocery delivery firm.
Well, of course, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be at least Waitrose or something like that, hasn't it?
Actually, Alex Robinson in the chat room says a couple of good points. He says that he's been made at risk of redundancy from his job, currently looking for work outside the aerospace industry for the time being, as it's slowing down the pace of the pilot training. Alex also says that he's hoping that after recovery, there'll be a large demand for pilots. Which
I mean, I hope so. I'm
and Stephen Ivey, look at his story. He's drastically reduced his flying, and he went off. They moved across the country to put food on the table and kind of pursue a different avenue. So there are just so many stories that way, and it happens every single time. It happened after 9/11. It happened after the recession. It happened every time there's a slowdown in the aviation industry. There's a good amount of people that say, you know what, that's just one too many furloughs for me. I'm going to go do something, Uber drivers, or go work corporate jobs
absolutely.
Or something like that.
Oh, blimey! I'll tell you what. I wouldn't mind an A320 captain being my Uber driver. My Uber ride into town. I think that would be. I'd feel very safe. Let's put it that way. I think I'd feel very comforted.
Yeah, they'd get on. They'd get on all right in a push button start car.
Oh, now look. I see what you did.
Actually,
there.
Just a quick one, Matt. Before we move on, just a quick hello to Lucas, who's joined us in the chat room.
Hi, Lucas.
Hello to you, Lucas. Hope you're well.
Pilot Pip, he's just joined us as well, I noticed.
And Pip, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Rich from Sheffield as well. A few more names in there. Your friend is back. Yeah, your friend is back, John. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, John Jester.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. It's all part of the fin. Fin?
All part of the fin. All part of the fin and the tail and the wings and the rudder.
You just described it. Look, I'm very tired. Be nice. Okay.
Bom dia, Lucas. Nós falamos português também.
Oh, no, that's just showing off.
Yeah, John, look at that. John, 4 furloughs. If you're motivated enough, you will make it. Which most of us are. Most of us do it because we love it. And we know that there's, for every good time, there's a bad time on the horizon. So,
indeed, absolutely. You're going to have to teach me how to speak like that, Armando. I'm sorry. I was very, very, very impressed by that. Blimey.
So we're going to move on to the next part of the show, and it's that segment of the show.
Sorry,
everyone looks forward to every week, especially my dad.
Yes.
So we are going to move on then to the next thrilling instalment of The Plain Truths with Captain Al and Matt, and this week they are talking about cracks in the windows.
Oh. Hello and welcome to another Plain Truce, and this week we're talking about window cracks. Joining me, as always, is the legend that is Captain Al. Hi, Captain Al.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yes, I'm very good.
Good.
Now, listen,
Excellent.
I just wanted to talk to you about window cracks. I know this sounds like a slightly odd subject, but I have been on an aircraft, even in the little amount of flying that I've done, where I've noticed that the window next to me has had a little tiny, like a hairline fracture, I suppose, for want of a better word, in my little window. And I must admit, as a nervous flyer anyway, it did make me quite apprehensive. So, I mean, I presume that obviously isn't some kind of major thing to be worried about as a thing. And I know there's another window on the outside, so maybe you could sort of talk me through a little bit of the procedures and things involved, like when it comes to the vehicle, to the aircraft inspections and stuff, and why perhaps that had been left rather than changed.
Okay, so within the passenger cabin, we've got those little windows that you and I look out of to admire the beautiful scenery beneath us, or the clouds. And you're quite right, there's two elements to it. There's the glass that is effectively on the outside. So that's what you are looking at if you're looking from the outside in. And then if you're inside, you've got a little bit of perspex, and then there's a gap between. Now, that little bit of perspex is primarily there to protect the glass on the other side, because what we don't really want is people smacking the glass with, you know, sharp objects or trying to inscribe their name in it, thinking that it's a penknife and a tree trunk or something like that. And you will have probably noticed that there's a small hole in that piece of perspex.
Yes.
And that's just to allow the pressure to equalize between the gap in between the perspex and the glass, really, because obviously the pressure in the cabin is changing. So it's just to allow pressure equalization between the perspex and the glass. So the perspex, which is just a protector for the glass, does get cracked and damaged. It's cosmetic. It's just there. Almost as trim, really. As I say, it provides a protection function, but it can be cracked. It would be very, very unusual to see any cracks in the glass on the other side of that perspex. And I can honestly say that I've never known them to become cracked other than by something hitting them. So, and that's been typically from the outside. So the windows in the passenger cabin, they're pretty robust, to say the very least, primarily because they're protected quite well. Not too many things hit them from the outside, and we protect them from sticky fingers and pen knives from the inside.
So moving on from what I call like the cabin area into the cockpit. Now, I mean, I've had something hit my windshield, and obviously I've ended up with a hairline crack or whatever that's worked its way up the screen. I mean, what are the rules as far as you as a captain is concerned? I mean, what can you basically fly with a crack in your windscreen?
So this is where it becomes a little bit complicated, because typically, windscreens for cars are made up of 3 layers, and generally for aircraft they're made up of 7 or more layers. And contained within those layers is a heating element, because we need to ensure that the windscreen remains clear at all times. We don't want it frosting up for obvious reasons. We need to see out. So, as you can appreciate, heating and cooling glass does provide a certain challenge, and the windshields themselves have a finite life, number of cycles. So they do become, over a period of time, delaminated. So out of those 7 layers, you'll start to see bits that are sort of slightly coming apart. And again, as you might imagine, there are tolerances for that. And typically what will happen is the engineers will take a felt tip pen and they'll draw around the area of delamination, and they'll monitor the spread. And that's perfectly normal, quite acceptable. With regards to cracking, we have basically 2 scenarios in flight. Has the windshield cracked on the inside or the outside? So if it's just a crack that you can see, but you cannot feel, so typically what you do is you take a pencil, a credit card, not your finger, because if it is a crack on the inside, you will cut your finger. Yeah. But you will try to feel whether that crack is on the outside or the inside. If you can feel that crack on the inside, you have a problem, because the integrity of the windshield is seriously impaired. If it's just on the outside, that's not such a big deal, and it may just be maintenance action required when you've landed, and it can be dispatched back to a maintenance base, or it may need to be replaced. If you're unlucky and it's on the inside, then you'll need to put your oxygen mask on, and you need to reduce the differential pressure, the delta P, such that the pressure between the outside and the inside of the aircraft is less. And how are we going to do that? We're going to descend, and we'll probably do it relatively quickly, because what we don't want is that windshield to break up and detach. Because if that happens, we've now got a big hole in the front of the aeroplane and an even bigger problem.
Wow, I mean, that's opened a whole new line of concerns and or questions for me there. I mean, presumably that's almost a once-in-a-lifetime scenario that you're describing.
I know of it happening twice.
Okay.
It happened a couple of years ago in China, where basically the windshield left the aeroplane. And it also happened in the UK. I'm trying to remember when, in the 70s or 80s, it happened to British Airways on a flight from Birmingham. And that was because the incorrect size bolts had been used to hold the windshield in place. So the windshield was basically blown off the aeroplane, and the captain went with it, and he would have permanently left the aeroplane were it not for the fact that the first officer was very quick and grabbed his legs, shouted to the purser, who then came to the cockpit to be presented with the captain outside of the aeroplane, all bar his legs, the first officer holding on. So the purser took over in holding the captain's legs whilst the first officer landed the aeroplane. Apart from a bit of frostbite, the captain was all right. But yeah,
that's incredible.
Yep. And I don't know the exact circumstances behind the one in China. It happened, I think, the year before last. So it has happened, but they are exceptionally rare events, as you might imagine.
So, and this would obviously generate immediate cabin depressurization, for example. So, I mean, what does that do to the cockpit, to the cabin as well? Presumably, like masks and things all have to come down. And
yes, the bigger problem that we face isn't so much the depressurization. It's the 400 mile an hour wind that's coming into your face.
Okay, yes, good point. Yeah,
which is quite debilitating, really, because that's not something that you can easily deal with. Obviously, everything that's in the cockpit that isn't bolted down is no longer in the same position that it was, because it will have just blown everywhere.
Disappeared, yes.
So yeah, it's quite a substantial problem. So yes, you've got a depressurization, but you've got a huge hole in the aeroplane as well, and it's at the front and it's straight at you.
So I mean, obviously you need to get on the ground as quickly as possible, and
yes,
it's presumably it's any airport that's capable of taking an aircraft your size, essentially.
Yes, basically.
Indeed. Well, I perhaps not the answer I was hoping for, but I appreciate the honesty there, Al. It's actually a very eye-opening question.
Well, if you want to be proactive and put a positive spin, on the two occasions that I'm aware of where the windshield has structurally failed, everybody survived. So there you go. It's testament to having two pilots and testament to the piloting skills.
Absolutely, and I think that's a perfect place to bring this to a close. Thank you, Captain Al. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Captain Al. Legend as always. Jan Hubner in the chat room actually is just a minor correction, because we like to be at least 50% correct, as we've said before. August 1990 on a 111 was flying out of BHX that time. There you are.
Birmingham.
There you go.
Actually, Alex Robinson in the chat room makes a very good point about your chat with Al, and that's just pull over and call Autoglass.
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. John's singing in our ear now. It's so. Part of me is amazed that he's. Yeah, old enough to remember that advert, I'll be honest. But anyway, there we go. It's yeah, absolutely.
That was a good little segment, that was, Matt. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, it's an unusual subject matter, isn't it? Really, but I hadn't even really thought about things like the front windshield. I mean, my question initially was actually more to do with the passenger window, and of course, it was interesting to learn that the one that you and I see, the Perspex one,
this one here.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But that one is actually just literally for show. So if it's got a crack in it, it doesn't make any difference. It's actually the outside one that is important, But anyway, yes, Captain Al, legend as always. Thank you very much for great segment as always.
I do remember my first window crack when we had a heating element failure, and there's 7 layers of glass there, but as you're watching that crack just kind of move, you sort of just put on your sunshades and you lower your seat as much as you can, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. Are we on the ground yet?
Yeah.
Can we land yet, please?
Tightening up straps.
Old enough or young enough to remember when car windscreens weren't laminated.
Yes, I'm old enough,
They were just uprooted. So when you had a chip or a stone flick up into your windscreen, the whole thing just shattered, and you could not see anything at all, and some of it would come inside you. But obviously with the new laminated technology, you just get a bit of a crack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can confirm, Nev, that my very first car, which was a Mark I Ford Fiesta, 958 cc's, I should stress, very, very powerful. I couldn't quite afford the 998 or whatever, the 1.1. Yeah, I couldn't quite afford that insurance, because for that it was still like 600 quid when I first started, which was like stupid money. I actually had that. I was on my way to Norwich, and the windscreen literally just imploded on me. It was the most horrific thing that I ever had in different times and all that kind of thing. I basically pushed the windscreen in and then drove it home. Different times.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's we should probably do something else, Carlos. Quick, dig me out of this
I
hole,
think
please.
what we're going to do, we are going to hand the show over to the absolute master of all things military, that is Armando, to introduce the next part of the show.
Oh man, we were going to drop it, but since Jonathan Warner and Rick Bell are in the chat room, suppose we should do it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Matt, if you're ready, let's hit the button.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this first article is coming to us actually from the Navy. US Navy Airborne Early Warning and Control aircraft crashed Monday during a training flight over Virginia. All 4 crew members safely egressed from the aircraft and were rescued on the ground. The Navy has yet to indicate what caused the plane, which is the largest aircraft station on an American aircraft carrier, to crash. At 3:50 p.m. on Monday, the Hawkeye went down on Wallops Island, which is the location of the NASA Flight Test Facility and the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport. A video from local news stations showed the aircraft plummeting to the earth, followed by a black cloud of smoke. The E2 Hawkeye normally flies with a crew of 5, a pilot, a co-pilot, combat information center officer, aircraft control officer, and a radar officer. The CIC aircraft control and radar officers sit in the rear of the airplane, monitoring data from its radar system. The radar, which is readily identifiable, is a large 24-foot wide circular radome mounted above the fuselage, similar to the E3 AWACS. The radar has a range of at least 341 miles and is capable of tracking up to 600 radar targets at once. It can also coordinate up to 40 intercepts simultaneously, vectoring friendly fighters in the direction of the plane. Now, I can relate to this. Getting out of a stricken Hawkeye is not easy. Unlike fighter jets, the propeller-driven E2 lacks ejection seats for the aircrew. Crew members must don parachutes before flight and in the event of an emergency, unbuckle themselves from their seats, open the side door, and jump out of the aircraft. So Matt is going to play out a CNN segment here in a second, and we'll put the link in the show notes so you guys can watch the full 5-minute video.
Much of what this plane does is classified. The plane uses this sophisticated radar, the large dish perched on top of the fuselage.
Second 2 Hotel Victor, will you talk on the Papa Tower also?
The Hawkeye commands and controls the airspace for U.S. and coalition forces.
We can't do what we do unless we got dedicated guys like Jerry in the back there who make stuff happen.
I got a traffic on my 2 o'clock now.
The Combat Information Center, or CIC, is in the back part of the plane. Although the Navy granted 10 on your side exclusive access to this part of the aircraft, most of what goes on back here is classified, and we are limited as to what we can show you.
In the back of the E2, we have 3 naval flight officers. The center seat's the mission commander. To my left is air control officer, and to where you're sitting is the radar officer. Pretty much, we run the mission according to commander's intent.
The Hawkeye is both the eyes and ears for carrier air wings flying combat missions.
Making sure that no unknown air contacts get in close to Mom without getting checked out by our fighters or us knowing who they are.
Mom, as they call her, is the carrier from which the E2 missions originate. The Hawkeye gets its name from its ability to see for hundreds of miles around the ship with an eye on just about anything and everything moving.
What I'll do is I'll tune my scope a bit here so I have a good radar picture.
The Hawkeye's sophisticated radar enables it to track aircraft, including missiles, even some surface contacts, for hundreds of miles in every direction.
So I can see Connecticut, I can see New Hampshire there, and Rhode Island, and I can see the southern part of Massachusetts.
All of the lines you see electronically painted on the scope are aircraft. A lot of aircraft.
You can watch that many planes at once.
This system can do it, with of course, my interface, of course.
The vast amount of information the weapons system on board the E2 processes enables battle commanders from ship to shore to make more informed decisions. Decisions that can ultimately determine the outcome of a battle.
It's a cliche, if you will, but I mean, knowledge is power.
Yeah, so you can see from that video, if you're listening to the audio podcast, head on over to the show notes and check out that little clip. There's not a lot of room back there in the back of an E2 Hawkeye, and getting out of it in a hurry is probably a challenge, you know. So whatever happened here, good job to the crew, good job to the aircraft commander, and I'll be looking to see if there's I'll be looking to see if there's any updates from the Navy on this mishap, and of course, as we always say, they're falling back on their training. So
I want to circle back, if I may, actually, just briefly to John Jester has sent us a picture. We were talking about window cracks and things, weren't we, and laminated glass, etc. And I can't see the chat room at the moment, but this picture here, what was this aircraft from? This picture from?
That was a CRJ.
CRJ 900.
Yeah, 29,000 feet, Matt, that happened.
I mean, you as you say, you know there's 7 layers of glass there, but you're right. Everything would tighten up just a little, wouldn't it?
It's suboptimal, certainly.
Yes, certainly suboptimal.
Apparently, John Jesser said, apparently when that happened, it sounded like a shotgun going off.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the most common cause is the heating elements will fail, and as you can imagine, it's negative 40 degrees, negative 50 degrees Celsius up there at altitude, and you're landing somewhere that may be 39 degrees Celsius on the ground, and that is it's just an immense pressure change, you know.
Rick Bell's just said in the chat, if I saw that, my butt would have eaten my seat cushion. I think he's right. Yes,
that's a visual thing we do not want to see.
That is not the sort of experiment we like to see going on, is it? Anyway, back to the military. Story 2.
Yeah, story 2. This one is on the defenseblog.com. And, I mean, we all know driving a car on a road and, driving along, and if you're not paying attention, you might hit a road sign. You never know. But how about if you're flying your fighter jet along a road and you hit a road sign? So on the 27th of August, Ukrainian Air Force fighter jets have practiced for rough landings on improvised runways as part of trials to use roads for emergency landings and to demonstrate the capability to swiftly assemble air power to counter any threat. 2 Sukhoi Su-27 heavy fighter jets of the Ukrainian Air Force landed on the main road connecting the capital Kiev with Chop on Thursday. In the footage below, which is Matt's going to play, hopefully, published by numerous witnesses on social media, you can see the Su-27 performing their drills on what is known as Highway MO6, a Ukrainian international highway connecting Kiev to the Hungarian border near Chop. One of the fighter jets miscalculates the landing point and almost landed on the head of people and police cars. And the Su-27 fighter also knocked down a road sign during the landing, which could have led to a fatal crash. It should be noted that in the days leading up to the exercise, the roads, bus stops and lampposts were temporarily removed. Well, obviously not that sign. Specialised road sweepers combed the few kilometres stretch to pick up debris left by the heavy vehicles that normally ply the road, and loud flares were fired to scare away birds that could pose a hazard to the aircraft. Now, I watched that video back a few times, and he definitely did hit the road sign, and it definitely did. It went somewhere. I don't think it went through the air intake.
Judging by the picture here, it actually folded into. If you look, it's actually attached to the is it the air intake there?
Yeah.
If let me just run that back. Look, there we go. If I run that back to about. Sorry, I don't normally do this on the fly, as you can tell. There we go. Here it comes.
There we go.
Wallop. There you are. You can see it just wrapped around the. Is that like an air intake, Armando?
Yeah, that's the intake for the engine. It's a twin engine aircraft, and there was actually some pictures published on social media by someone. I don't know if it was officially the Russian government, but that road sign was solidly folded into that intake.
Yes, it was one with the aircraft.
Yeah, we're going to call that a ground support staff fail on that one because, while the pilot may have miscalculated that landing, they should have also planned that a pilot will miscalculate the landing.
Actually, Armando, on your time here in the UK with the force and that, did you ever have the chance to land on any of our UK roads?
No, I hated driving on UK roads, much less landing on them. What are you talking about? You can't fit a lorry, much less 84 feet of propeller.
I mean, you could probably land on like the M25 because it's 4 lanes, but that would be about.
No, there'd be too much traffic on there, Matt.
Something tells me that in the UK, for us to land on the M25 would have required a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, really? Yeah, but I don't know what you mean. We don't like forms here in the UK.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is it is a capability that we maintain. I think A-10s, F-15s have all landed on roads at some point. I think it's usually happening in Europe, actually. It's something that the U.S. practices occasionally, infrequently, because we're pretty sure that we're going to have access to some kind of airfield. But the Russians...
John's just found me the picture of the road sign, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. There's,
literally
it's in
one
there.
with the... Yeah, I mean, I think that would have stayed there for the entire flight, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. It probably didn't even cause any damage. It'll buff out, as they say.
And let's not forget as well, these Russian-built aircraft, as we'd seen from, the Illusions and stuff, the 76s, these are built like tanks. You could have probably hit a brick building and carried on flying and flown somewhere else.
Well, and Jacob Darlington Brown in the chat room, that the Royal Flying Doctors, which are probably the world's biggest operator of PC-12s, they do it all the time. They land on roads, they land on unimproved airstrips, which may be a dirt road, a paved road, or something like that. I know the Harriers back in the day used to land on roads, but all that takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of coordination with local authorities. It is one of those last resort things that you're going to use in a conflict but if your home base is compromised, a chemical attack or a biological attack or something like that, you got to land somewhere. And it is a capability that most air forces, or at least advanced air forces, maintain, just not practice regularly.
The RAF, the RAF, Jonathan Warner was saying, used to land Jaguars on the roads, apparently.
Yeah.
And Richard Adams has suggested one of the reasons why you wouldn't be trying to land on the M25 is because there'd just be too many cones, which is probably a good point. absolutely.
Yeah.
We do love a cone here in the UK.
Too many potholes on that cone.
Oh, steady.
but that's why our road tax goes up each year. Anyway, moving on.
Well, that's a great question.
Suddenly,
would I have to have a road tax sticker on the side of my canopy if I'm going to land on the road? Do I need to get an MOT?
You probably get pulled over by an ANPR camera.
Oh God, I can't imagine the emissions results from the MOT on a CV22.
I mean, you might be surprised. It can't be any worse than a 11.5 litre diesel engine.
Yeah,
I would love to see an MOT report on a CV22.
Right. Okay. I mean, they do have them, just not as we know it, Jim. Anyway, shall we move on?
Well, yeah. Speaking of the Russians, this is your helicopter update brought to you by your friendly PTUK staff. Progress. Arseniev Aviation Company, Russian helicopters subsidiary, conducted the maiden flight of the latest Ka-52 Mike attack helicopter prototype last month. That is according to the Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade. The helicopter is an upgraded variant of the Ka-52 Alligator, which has been mass-produced since 2007. Research and development for the Ka-52 modernization program began in 2019, and a contract for 114 Ka-52s is in the pipeline. Information in the public domain shows that the Ka-52 Mike will be equipped with an upgraded electro-optical or camera sighting system with an increased range of detection and target recognition, as well as new digital drive to improve the accuracy of the automatic cannon. I think that's similar to the Apache. The new look Ka-52 will also receive a new radar and an extended range guided missile. A more powerful heating element for the rotor blades will also allow the Ka-52 to operate in Arctic conditions. New landing gear is designed for higher durability and load-bearing capacity. The modernized Ka-52 also has a new cockpit environment, which will ensure compliance with modern ergonomic requirements, including night vision goggles for the pilot.
Jonathan Warner is suggesting apparently that the Ka-52s make an Apache look like a child's toy, by the way.
Yeah, it's a beast of a helicopter, and you put the pictures up there. Go out and Google it. It is a mean-looking helicopter. It's got the counter-rotating propeller or rotor blades. Very, very interesting-looking aircraft.
Yeah.
They take out the road signs and the trees when they land on the roads.
Yeah, sorry. More importantly, this is from Rick Bell saying, and more importantly, can the Ka-52s land on the roads? Probably. You certainly wouldn't need much of a, to take off. You wouldn't need much of a, much in front of you, to be fair.
No, these are very capable helicopters. And speaking of capable helicopters, in the U.S. military update, the U.S. Army 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, or the Night Stalkers, a highly specialized combat aviation unit headquartered at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The unit supports U.S. and coalition combat units like the Army Special Forces, Naval Special Warfare, otherwise known as the SEALs, and other special operations units conducting attack, assault, reconnaissance, infiltration, exfiltration, and pretty much any other special operation. But they are updating their MH6s and AH6s into a NOTAR, or a no-tail rotor configuration. So recent images just surfaced, and this variant was meant to provide the regiment with a quieter and safer operation over a traditional tail rotor. Because the fan is enclosed in the tail boom, tail rotor noise, which is another propeller in the back, is reduced. And it's also eliminated vulnerable exposed blades, which are subject to enemy fire, also eliminating the possibility of persons being injured or killed on the ground, which is the cause of many confined area maneuvering accidents. NOTAR-equipped helicopters are among the quietest of helicopters, a feature that is vital during special operations. Now, the NOTAR, the no-tail rotor design, has been developed by McDonnell Douglas Helicopter Systems. It's been in use since I think the 60s or the 70s. So there's been many variants of this, but this system uses a fan inside the tail boom to build a high volume of low pressure air, which exits through two slots and creates a boundary layer flow of air along the tail boom using the Coanda effect. The boundary layer changes the direction of airflow around the tail boom, creating thrust opposite to the motion created by basically the rotors, the gyroscopic forces of the rotors and the engine. So there you go. That's just another advancement in two different helicopters.
I'm going to be really, perhaps not controversial, because I'm the first to admit that helicopters defy physics as far as I'm concerned.
True.
They're not made in they're not made in factories. They're made in Hogwarts. But forgive my naivety, but that is not a very nice looking aircraft. It looks like, to me, it looks like somebody bolted on something random onto the back of it.
Well, you had to somehow get a jet engine and all of the air from that jet engine to go backwards and out the sides. And
I feel like I don't know. I feel like somebody could have done a better job. Do you know? I just. It's just been sort of like bolted on. It just looks like it's been bolted onto the back of the helicopter underneath the rotor blades. You think? I mean, I assume there's enough clearance there also for the, it's not going to catch the rotor blades and the.
No, it's. I'm sure it's been developed. This is probably a prototype. That, like I said, the NOTAR concept has been around for many, many years. So this is probably just another example of us having the computing power to anticipate the aerodynamics of an upgrade like this. So, back in the day in the 60s and 70s, they were doing this with math and paper and slide rules. No, I mean, there were computers, but nowadays with the ability for computers to analyze something before you ever build it and how it's going to act, I'm sure this will evolve. This is one of the Army's most capable helicopters, the AH-6, MH-6. So I'm sure they've taken that into account.
Jonathan Warner is very much on your side here. He's basically saying that the MD-500 SA looks cool. What are you on about, Matt? Which is, is fair enough.
Well, we're just gonna paint it black and call it tactical. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Although he does admittedly say sort of afterwards that okay, all that said, it does look a little tiny bit weird. And then Sturman is also joining in, saying that, Matt, I agree, it is a bit sort of drone Dalek. Actually, that's a good way of describing it. Actually, isn't it? It is a bit sort of like a bit of a drone Dalek type sort of thing. It's I don't know. I would have at least. Do you know what it? I think I know what it is. Sorry, Nev's probably nodded off by now, to be honest. But it's I can't find the pictures. There it is.
Nev's ordering himself one on.
Is he?
online
Right.
now.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to this look, because it's just like you think. Well, at least paint it all the same colour.
I'm sure they will.
Looks a bit like a big cigar just stuck on the back.
The big cigar. Yes, that's one hell of a Cuban right there. Anyway, shall we move on to
nice little story this one for Nev, actually. Very nice.
Here's a good one. Yes, I'm enjoying reading this earlier on, actually. It says that the D-Day Squadron participates in VJ Day, 75th commemorative flyover. Wednesday that's just gone, on the 2nd of September, the commemorative Air Force's Inland Empire Wing conducted a flight over several important historic landmarks which played a major role in World War II. This event commemorates 75 years since Imperial Japan signed the surrender document aboard the USS Missouri, officially ending World War II. The Victory Flight hopes to bring honour to the veterans of World War II, including personnel who were held as prisoners of war or listed as missing in action for their service and sacrifice, and to thank and honour the families of those veterans and pay tribute to the contribution made on the home front by the people of Southern California during World War II. The flight went over many of these important landmarks, such as the aircraft manufacturing facilities in Santa Monica, the Santa Ana Naval Air Station, and Marine Air Corps Station in El Toro. The Pacific Battleship Center, Battleship Iowa, is another landmark the flight will fly over in conjunction with a live streaming event in collaboration with Battleship Missouri in Pearl Harbor. This is a very big year, said Bill Prosser, IEW Business Officer. This is truly one of the last opportunities to pay a tribute to those who contributed to the war in person. And sadly, due to the pandemic, we are trying to find very creative ways to doing it. If we do not do it now, we'll be missing a tremendous opportunity to educate the public about World War II and why it is such a significant part of our history. The 90-minute flyover began at 12 p.m. Pacific time at Torrance Airport, also known as Zamperini Field, and went over several landmarks. It hit the target flying over the USS Iowa at about 12:30 p.m. 14 World War II era aircraft were slated to participate. 5 C-47s amongst those who returned to Normandy in June 2019 as the D-Day squadron. Aboard some of the aircraft will be the veterans, Rosie the Riveters, and Holocaust survivors. So very fitting tribute, I think. And that's a very nice thing to do, especially under such difficult circumstances.
Actually, Nev, how would you fancy a flight in a C-53?
Yes, please. Yep.
Yeah, they actually, the Inland Empire Wing, you have to go to the US, and I don't know whether they're currently doing these flights, but you can, for $200, Nev, you can have a flight in C-53.
Okay.
Which is not too bad, I think. It's actually
when you get your refund from EasyJet,
yay!
Transfer the money, and we'll be off.
Yeah. Yes, that'll buy you 1/15 of a flight. Yes,
and especially for Matt, they've got a Harvard 2, a T6 teacher, or Harvard 2 and a T6 teacher. You can have an aerobatic flight in one of those for $400.
No, you're all right, thanks.
$5.
No. All good, thank you. Moving on.
Hey, Nev, if you're going to book a flight on a C-47 or a C-53, just book with your credit card, please.
That's it. Yeah.
Please don't do it, Carlos. That would just be very foolish.
Moving on.
You're never going to be allowed to forget that.
You're not going to be allowed to forget that. Of all the people to do something as stupid as that. Even Simon Calder, the man who is the king of this, is like, even if you've got the money, always buy your flights and your accommodation and everything on a credit card.
Oh, I was going to treat you to a chance with that money when it comes, Matt. But
I'll shut up.
Oh well.
Yeah, no,
anyway.
I take everything back. Yeah, I withdraw my earlier statement. Moving on.
So, moving on to the next segment, Nev, what's coming up next?
Yes, now, you remember in the last few weeks we ran a competition with the aim of getting to know you, our audience, a little better. So many thanks to Andrew Keegan from the Plane Reclaimers for giving us the amazing prize of £150 to spend in the Plane Reclaimers shop. If you haven't seen what they do, you just check out episode 324, where we had him as a guest on the show. So very well done to Andrew van der Sarg, who won the draw, and you can hear his entry on last week's show. On the show, which is episode 330. We asked you to send in little pieces about your experience around the theme of aviation in my life. And for the next few weeks, we're playing out some of the feedback that we received. This week's entry comes from Jan Hubner. Hello, gentlemen. This is my not so exciting story of why I love aviation and what got me there. When I grew up in Berlin in the 1970s and 1980s, we were living on that island city in the middle of evil communist East Germany. As the city was legally under Allied status, only the Americans, British and French were allowed to operate commercial air traffic in and out of West Berlin. This also meant that I grew up with likes on BA, Dan Air and Pan Am, the BAC 111 and 727s. My family was fortunate enough to allow for most holidays and friends and family visits outside of Berlin to be done by means of air travel. In fact, we used it so often, my dad was awarded with Pan Am's lifetime membership in Clipper Club in the early 80s. Unfortunately, my dream of becoming a professional pilot got obliviated very early in my life, as I was born with some serious visual impairment, which only got corrected in my late 20s. So way after, I had to choose my career path after graduating from school. Being a technical-minded personality, I chose a career in IT, so feet on the ground rather than in the air. But as my life and career progressed, aviation still didn't become my profession, but working in IT got me some lovely projects in this space. Unfortunately, most of the airlines I worked on projects for went out of business. So people like Air Berlin, Deutsche BA, Germania have all gone. However, I made friends and with some great people who got me some cool behind-the-scenes tours over the past 10 to 20 years. Visits to maintenance hangars during night shifts. You can have fun, but make sure you don't break anything. Being allowed onto training flights on Airbus aircraft, or having a barbecue with the airport's fire brigade. All fantastic memories. The best, last but not least, are my friends from Munich. Amongst them, my oldest friend and 2 professional pilots, one of whom is an A350 captain. The 3 guys allowed me to join them in 2017 to embark on a trip along the northwest coast of the US, all the way up to Alaska and back with 2 GA aircraft. The chap I flew most of the legs with is also CFII and was confident enough to give me a lesson on each segment to fly the C-182T under his supervision. So in the end, I got to fly with my own hands and feet, stick and rudder, which is the most amazing experience right after the birth of my son. I might not have done so bad, as they promised to include me in their next trip whenever COVID and the gods of aviation will allow. That's all for now. Thanks for having us part of me. Sorry, I'll read that again. That's all for now. Thanks for having me as part of your such a wonderful community. Huge thanks for all the love and effort you guys put into the show. Always a pleasure. Greetings, tschüss, and bye-bye. Your friend Jan from Berlin. Well, that was very nice, Jan. Thank you very much for some lovely words, and some great experiences that you had over the years. Absolutely fantastic.
That's quite, getting to hold the controls and stuff is that's very. I mean, I remember doing that with when we went. Am I allowed to say this, Armando? That I held the controls for a little while we were up in the. Or have I now got to take that? Or have I now got to take that out in post, seeing as we're editing this week's show?
No. It was...
I love it. Because obviously we've all had the chance to read through the stories that have been sent in to us. And one of the things I like most is the fact that with most people, the whole aviation thing started at a really early age when people were really young, which I think is really important.
Yeah, as where in my case, my any vague relation to aviation sort of started about 8 years ago, which is nice.
And listening to some of these feedbacks that we've received, just like Jan's, I can only dream, when you're talking about the golden age of aviation and BA and Pan Am and Clippers and 727s. I know nobody ever said that, but I think the 727 is such a classic airliner. People that flew on 707s. That's why I got into aviation. My father got me into it. My brother's in aviation, and it was just this sort of quintessential poster on your wall, like one day I will be in the sky like those individuals. And I just love hearing some of these feedbacks and listening to some of these stories, because it takes me back to why I got into aviation.
Yeah, this is it. And of course, in lots of ways, I mean, obviously your career was, sort of up to this point, obviously military based. But, I mean, you are living many people's dreams at the moment, literally taking people on holiday or taking them on their business trip or whatever with what you're doing. I mean, it's quite it's such a cool job, isn't it, really, when you think about it?
Yeah, I think most of us that do this, whether you're a pilot, cabin crew, or everybody on that airplane has a story and they have a reason for being there. And it's just a great thing to be part of that.
Absolutely. Well, there we are. Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Really appreciate it. We've got more of those coming up very soon. By all means, although you can't enter the competition now, do please feel free to send in your aviation stories in your life. We'd still love to share them with the audience, because we want to use this as an opportunity really to sort of get to know you, our listener. We want to hear what it is that you love about aviation and why you listen to the show. Loads of ways to do that. You can send us a WhatsApp voice message if you like. by sending it to +44 757 2249166. The email address is podcast@planetalkinguk.com. You can also fill in the form on the website, www.planetalkinguk.com. And in fact, Jenny earlier was watching the show through our webpage rather than through YouTube, which was very, very cool. And actually, while I'm here, let me do the social media links as well. Search your Facebooks and Instagrams and Twitters for the handle Plane Talking UK, all as one word. You'll find us all there.
Yeah, and don't forget as well, as Matt said, if you send a picture, an aviation-related picture, to that WhatsApp number or email us, it can be on the screen behind Matt in the main studio.
Yes. Actually, while we're talking about that, I should just stress that the picture that's up here at the moment, he's very reliable. It has to be said here. It's the legend that is Jonathan Warner. Now, that is a very stunning picture, isn't it? So, is it what? So, describe to me what this picture is. That's a what? Sorry.
Buff.
Yeah, that's a B-52. I dare to say that he probably took that at Fairford.
Yes, no, that is correct. It's, as I say, there's some stunning photographs there, really, isn't there? It's because the B-50. I think he was saying actually that because we ran a story last week, didn't we, where they were busy. The police were busy moving them on, and I think he was saying he was there. They were the police were there in force, moving everyone on today. So it's they're sort of
actually. I think Jonathan Warner did say that he was, after he took that picture, he was heading to his love shack.
Ha ha ha! See what he did there?
See, this is where I wish I had like an APG style soundboard. And that I could do some kind of whistling wind, or maybe I don't know what tumbleweed sounds like. But I
you could see us totally lost on John. He's like
that piece of dead air tells you all you need to know.
I think that the clues are there. To be honest with you, Carlos, I think you should take that into serious consideration.
Neil Lamworth says I had to take a day off for that joke.
Yeah, absolutely. You see what you did there? You're destroying the audience, Carlos. I've got to be honest. Anyway.
Oh, Matt, you said you were going to edit the show, so there you go.
Yeah, I may have to fix that one in post.
Insert a laugh track.
I ain't doing that.
Hold on. Lane Street chat room.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I've lost the chat room, so you'll just have to read it for now.
Lane Street says, was he riding on his rock lobster?
Oh yes, Yes, I'm only aware of that song through Family Guy, weirdly, not through anything else. But anyway, there we go. This has got nothing to do with aviation, and unfortunately, it is time to wrap up. So
yes, we're going to say a big thanks to everyone who's joined us tonight, everyone who's watched the show, everyone who listens to the show as an audio podcast and downloads it, and a big thanks just to everyone who's joined us tonight. Thanks to all the hosts. Thanks for coming back on, Nev and Armando. Great to have you back. Yeah. And that is it. So have a great weekend, everyone, whatever you're doing. From me, Carlos, here in the PTUK studio, home studio for me. From Matt in the master PTUK suite. From Nev in the NevTech studios. And from Armando in his palatial Charlotte mansion. Have a great weekend. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.